Professor Ho, you've done extensive work researching luxury marketing. Can you outline the key distinctions between luxury and non-luxury consumers? How do their purchasing behaviors, brand expectations, and emotional drivers differ?
Okay. I started working in this particular about 8 years ago. One of my students who is currently getting his Ph.D. In marketing at Yale University approached me, and we started working in this particular area. And this is how I started working and doing research in luxury marketing. To answer the question about the distinction between non-luxury marketing consumers and luxury consumers, the distinction is that that for luxury consumers, they use conspicuous consumption, as we call it, as a way to project or project a certain image, image that they want. For example, in marketing, we say that products are a means to an end, where we use the product as a way to achieve a certain end. For example, in the case of luxury consumers, they may use a luxury product as a way to project a certain status or certain prestige that they want to present to the world. Whereas non-luxury consumers may want to, but they might not be able to afford the expensive items or the conspicuous items to show their status. So I mean, it's really hard to differentiate the two, in the sense that one might be here a non-luxury consumer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to be. Maybe at this point in time they may not be able to afford it, right? But on the other hand, if you look at other luxury consumers, they are they consume, but then they might not necessarily afford it, but then they save, to try to buy products that as a way to show their status. But does that mean that they necessarily can afford it? We don't know. So for me personally, myself, I consider myself as a non-luxury consumer because I'm not a very brand conscious person. I don't go out of my way to go look for brands every single time that I buy anything. So I consider myself a non-luxury consumer.
Perhaps a key factor here is brand consciousness. How does the awareness of an individual as it pertains to what brands are out there and which ones are thought of as prestigious versus non-prestigious, how does that kind of play into the calculus of whether or not they are a luxury or non-luxury consumer?
Well, this is where I think a lot of the luxury brand marketers really do a really good job of marketing the brand as prestige, right? The Louis Vuittons of the world, the Gucci's of the world, their advertising, the marketing is always been, hey, this product is luxury. It projects that image of luxury, as opposed to, let's say, something that is not luxury. I mean, that's very different. So marketers have always been very successful in marketing those luxury products as, hey, if you own it, it says a lot about your success.
Now, your research highlights that luxury shoppers mature in 3 phases. Can you break these phases down for us? What are the key behavioral shifts that happen at each phase?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question, because the first paper that my co-author and I published is a theoretical piece where we propose a theoretical model where for luxury consumers, even nowadays, luxury consumers are starting to break up into different segments. Now, we call it 3 stages, but in reality, probably you can break it into 4. I'll call it we call it stage 1, 2, and 3, but we can add stage 0 to it. 0 means basically the non-luxury consumers, which we just talked about. Those that are not in the market for luxury. So I would call it stage 0. Now, there are many reasons why we progress to the different stages. Maybe economically, as we become more economically well-to-do, then people tend to start to look for luxury products. That's typically the case when people start to become more economically independent, or they they progress. They tend to go after luxury as a way to show their status, that, hey, my economic status. So we call it stage 1, from 0 to stage 1. Now, once you get to stage 1, what do you think people want once they have access to luxury? What do you think that they want?
Yeah, my guess is brands that communicate luxury.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They want the whole world to know that, hey, I'm a luxury consumer now, right? So for stage one consumers, they want brands, we call them loud, to be loud, the logos to be as big as possible. They want to, because that's where, they want to show that they have achieved that status already. So for stage one consumers, they're looking for brands that show very loud brands, logos everywhere on the handbag or the shirt or whatever the product is, the luxury product. They want to show brands that are very loud. Right, the Louis Vuitton, the symbol everywhere. So stage one luxury consumers are very loud, as we say. But as time progresses, as they mature, now when I say mature, it could be, in terms of temporal, like, age,
Emotional maturity.
right? But it's also emotional and also financial. And as you grow, right, as you mature, guess what? People the people will start to think, well, I don't want to be in stage two now. I want to be different. Everybody's trying to be different. And then they would say, okay, I want to kind of separate from the other group now. I mean, and now it's, hey, now as more and more people can afford luxury, I want to show that I can even go further. So then the second stage is when people start to break away from stage one. Then they want to go quieter, meaning that they not necessarily want to go after big loud brand, big logos. They're trying to kind of separate, say, I want to show that I am different from this group now.
Like a more sophisticated luxury
more
consumer.
sophisticated, to show that I'm even more sophisticated than stage one. All right. So this stage two people are trying to kind of break away and looking to be less. You can even say that less identifiable. And as they grow even further now to the third stage, where now we this third segment, we call them quiet luxury, right? As a matter of fact, you can show your status without showing luxury items. That's where the uniqueness of this stage three is what we call quiet luxury. They are nowadays have a lot of luxury products that have no logos. None whatsoever. But they are as expensive, even more expensive than those stage one products. And then you would say, it doesn't make sense though. I mean, you would say, hey, how is it that you want to show off, but you're not going to, you're not going to show up with logos and brands anymore? Yes. As a matter of fact, that's the new trend, is that I want to show off by not showing off.
Yeah, and perhaps the way in which consumers still demonstrate sophisticated luxury without the logos is in the material design of the product.
Not only that, in other words, how do you know that you are stage three consumer? You only know if you know.
Yeah.
In other words, if you don't know, that means you're not you're not there yet.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you're not sophisticated enough yet. If I'm holding a handbag that's stage three, if you are not that sophisticated, you will not know. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, now I love this stage model. Moving forward, can we cover kind of how marketing strategies differ between companies looking to target luxury consumers versus non-luxury consumers? And maybe if there's a bit of a variation in strategy if they're targeting stage one consumers versus stage 2 and 3 consumers.
Exactly. Well, if you look at companies like Louis Vuitton, they are a conglomerate. They have different brands, and they have brands that will target each group of the segments. Now, we have also done research where, what if, let's say, I am a non-luxury consumer, but I'm on my way to stage one. We call it 0.5 stage, where we call it masstige. It's marketed to the general public, but also some prestige, like Michael Kors brand, Coach would fall under 0.5 stage, where it's massively marketed, but has some prestige to it.
Would a great example of this be, say, Banana Republic? They have their flagship stores, which are a bit more luxury forward, but they also have factory stores where consumers can still access the brand.
Exactly. So now companies like you, to answer your question, is that they have brands for each stage. For stage one, for example, Louis Vuitton, they would put their logos everywhere, make it really big. But then they also have certain products that are, like I mentioned, in stage 3, no logos, nothing. So they have different strategies for different segments of the market. And that's how they market, identify the different luxury market now is, depending on what stage they are in. So like I said, our model here gives the marketers the ability. I mean, we identify different strategies for each stage. For example, if companies in stage 1 would heavily emphasize on the luxury, trying to bring, for example, not only the stage 1 consumers, but also the non-consumers that are on the way, say, hey, you know what, come on over. But the problem is that, but at the same time, what about stage 2 and stage 3 products? How do you market? So for stage 2 and stage 3, then you would try to educate the stage 1 consumers to go higher, right? With the brands, with the quietness of it, to show that, hey, you know what? Luxury doesn't mean you got to be loud. Now, luxury is about trying to show that you can still have luxury without having to show it.
Yeah, I find this idea of educating stage 1 consumers really fascinating. And I'm curious if you could kind of break down what that education process looks like, or what it is they're actually learning. My guess is that it has a lot to do with the material makeup of certain kinds of clothing. Say if a person becomes more wealthy and they become more environmentally conscious, they are much more apt to spend more money on clothing if it's sourced responsibly as it pertains to how it's made, environment basis. But also maybe tailoring and certain kinds of services that are sold alongside a piece of clothing. Say if you're a segment 1 consumer and you're kind of over the mystique of being able to put on a logo, and you start thinking to yourself, wow, like what's the next thing? Maybe I can start tailoring my clothing, and I'm happy to pay that price to make it fit well.
Again, trying to bring it to the next level where it's not about all big logos, being loud. You can educate them. It's interesting that you mentioned about sustainability, because there was a paper that was published recently that talks about the sustainability of the justification of luxury. Actually, the article talks about that actually, even though luxury products are expensive, but over the long run, actually it's sustainable because people, because of the quality, people keep it for longer, right? And we don't replace it as often. So from the sustainability point of view, actually, the argument is that actually luxury products is more sustainable because they tend to use the product over a longer period with better quality. So that's a good question that you ask. But as to how they we educate them, again, is to try to raise the level. Like I said, is to that right now, when everybody is doing this, you want to kind of break off and show something else. All right. So now the trend is that, again, you want to show off by not showing off. That is the trend, and that's how companies are trying to start to educate the stage 1 consumers to move on to the next stage. Now, our theory says that you slowly progress to stage 2 and to stage 3, but that doesn't mean that you cannot jump a stage. Right, but our model, our theoretical model says that the people progress and mature over time, especially once you get to the luxury segment market.
Yeah, and I guess a great example of how a person might jump from stage to stage is, say, putting aside what they might wear sort of casually with big logos. Maybe they mature professionally and they have to go straight to buying the finest clothing that's perfectly tailored for their job. And they kind of skip the step where they're not interested in wearing big brands or logos because it's actually not professionally appropriate. Right. Now, I'm curious, is there a distinction for us to draw between companies like, say, Louis Vuitton, where they may have this more holistic marketing strategy to consumers of all 3 luxury stages, versus, say, a Loro Piana, which is just so high luxury and expensive? It really is only interested in selling to consumers that care less about logos and more about quality. You walk into one of those stores and there's no, like, for the most part, logo on the clothing, and then you start thinking to yourself like, if there is no logo, why am I really paying $20,000 for like a sweater? And it gets to this idea of even like the stage 1 luxury consumers, it's not tailored to them. It's just to the stage 3 super mature consumers.
Right. So you have a good point. Some companies like Louis Vuitton, they have basically cover all 3 different stages. Some will focus only, let's say, stage 3 luxury consumers, like you say, $20,000 sweater with no logos, but you say, how in the world, how is it possible that people would pay so much for such product that doesn't have a logo? But like I say, those who will know what you're wearing and what you know. In other words, if you are stage 3, do you care who? Do you really care that people all know that you are in stage 3 or what stage you are in? I suppose once you reach that point, my model would say you probably don't. In other words, you don't need to know. Let everybody know.
And perhaps if we explore the theory of mind of a stage 3 consumer, in my personal sense is that at the end of the day, what perfect clothing from an experience point of view and what you're actually buying point of view looks like is I just want to go to a store where I receive super high quality service and I know that all the clothes being made are the utmost quality of the best source materials, and if I have to pay $20,000 for a sweater or $30,000 for a jacket, I don't care about the price. I just want the experience and what I'm actually getting to be top notch, and that's kind of how these companies make their business.
Well, yeah, but it depends on what stage you're in, right? If I'm in stage 1, probably that might not work, because if I walk in the store, I'm looking for brand, I'm looking for logo. Right, so for that particular scenario that you describe, probably it's more appropriate for either stage 2 or stage 3 consumers.
Now, what are the common misconceptions both luxury and non-luxury firms have of the audience that they're targeting?
Well, according to our research, that some of the papers that we have done is that consumers buy luxury for different reasons, and also their perception about luxuries. The general thinking of most people might think that the people who wear luxuries are snobbish, and like there's a sense of, oh yeah, I'm here, you are there. And we also did a research where we tried to identify if somebody walks in with certain product, what is the image that you get from them, and especially those non-luxury consumers who are on the way. And we found that for example, Prestige 0.5. Let's say you come in wearing, let's say, a Michael Kors. What does it tell me? I mean, you're trying to present luxury, but you're not paying a whole lot for it, right? So what does it tell me about a person who does that?
Insecurity.
Well, yeah, you're trying to present something, but at the same time, do I afford you that luxury symbol? The answer is surprisingly no.
Now, I'd love to connect our conversation to macroeconomics. In what ways do economic downturns and periods of high inflation affect the luxury market, and how may that differ in the way it affects a non-luxury market?
That's a good question, because recently, as you can see, in the last couple of years, we have this high inflation going. I mean, since 2000, and so a lot of companies, especially malls, are struggling, especially trying to attract shoppers into the malls. CNBC had a recent segment on this topic about luxury and non-luxury. What they have found is that if you look at malls are struggling to attract consumers. And what are the malls that are really doing well? Luxury malls. I mean, those that target luxuries are doing really well. They call it the Tiffany Walmart strategy. You are either luxury or you're not luxury. Those that are in the middle are struggling. So, and even during economic downturn, luxury shoppers are not as affected as, let's say, non-luxury. That much we have found, especially in the last couple of years. During the period of inflation, maybe the rich or the luxury consumers may slow down a little bit, but that doesn't affect them as much as, let's say, non-luxury consumers generally. Yeah.